Hi. In this video, we're going to be talking about chapters 20, 21, and 22 of Parable of the Sower. Let's get right into it. I'm going to share screen with you. I'm going to show you my notes. Sometimes my notes are very helpful and expansive, and sometimes they're pretty chill. But they're guideposts for me, and I think it's probably helpful for you as well. So I have identified chapter 20 as being about trauma and victims and care. So it opens with God is neither good nor evil, neither loving nor hating. God is power, God is change. We must find the rest of what we need within ourselves, in one another, in our destiny. In this chapter, we really see the group bond together in really important ways. First of all, they are on their way to San Francisco. They were going to go through the San Francisco Bay Area. As if you know the map of California, you know that if you follow the 5 or you follow the 101, it's going to take you up to the Bay Area. But another earthquake happens and the city just collapses. There is chaos. There is roving gangs. They hear about it on the radio. It just sounds like, if you've ever seen the Batman Joker film with Heath Ledger, it just sounds like the chaos is akin to like the Joker chaos. Addicts are running wild, setting fires in area that the earthquake didn't damage. Bands of the street poor precede or follow them, grabbing whatever they can from stores and from the walled enclaves of the rich and what's left of the middle class. In some places, the rich are escaping by flying out in helicopters. The bridges that are still intact, and most of them are guarded either by police or by gangs. Both groups are there to rob desperate, fleeing people of their weapons, money, food, and water at the least. The penalty for being too poor to be worth robbing is a beating, a rape, and or death. The National Guard has been activated to restore order. So the city has collapsed, and so they are having to reassess what they're going to do. Lauren talks about how power is going to shift, how criminals are going to find a way. Criminals are going to find new sources of power, new ways to be. So as a result, they're going to have to move eastward. They're going to have to avoid that area. And that takes, but the fighting and the gunshots and the fires, it still spills over into their journey. As they are traveling, they wake up one night to find a gunfight has broken out all around them. Not too far, they have to stay really close because it's getting closer to them. Lauren can see that no sides are going to win in this. During that gunfight, Bankole finds a child with his mother, and the mother has been shot by a stray bullet. And in that time, we see Lauren kind of freaking out that Bankole isn't there. Bankole is the handsome older man that Lauren has a crush on. And she goes looking for him. She finds him with this boy and the body of the boy's mother. And they bring him back to camp. And as they're sitting there, and this is what I think is such an interesting part, as they're sitting there, this is this part, the orphan child. As they're sitting there, Natividad, who has her child Dominic in her arms, someone from that gunfight starts moving toward the group and gets closer and closer. And the little boy who's been abandoned starts to cry. And Natividad, by instinct, takes this little boy who's orphaned, who has no mother, and immediately puts one breast in her child's mouth and puts another breast in the little boy's mouth, even though he's a little too old for breastfeeding age. I think he's around 3. And that quiets both of them. And the crying stops, and the man from the gunfight who is moving toward them stops to listen to see if he can hear anything else, and he moves away. I think this moment is so special and interesting. We have Lauren, who was like firmly, staunchly anti-children, and how caring for children would only bring risk to the group. But now we see that when this group sees someone in need, that person who is in need is suddenly adopted into the group. even if it's a child, especially if it's a child. And what a powerful image that Octavia Butler has created by, you know, like one mother is all mothers, right? This family is turning into a found family, right? A family that it's much bigger than just one single family unit. It looks a lot like the community that Lauren came from, but also very different, right? They care for each other and they interdepend on each other in a way that is much deeper than what we saw in Lauren's neighborhood of Robledo. We see this again when we learn more about Allie and Jill. Allie and Jill, we learn so yet another instance of former slavery. Allie and Jill were, it's a horrible story, pimped out by their father as sex workers. And when Allie got pregnant, her father killed the baby. And at that point, they let their father get very drunk one night and they set fire to the house while he was passed out. And they live in fear of him continuing to pursue them. And yet again, the idea of you know, trauma and former slavery, bringing this group of people together. I always thought it was really interesting the way that, you know, Lauren comes from relative comfort, and yet, I mean, you know, she's relatively privileged. She's a middle-class kid. She has a good education. She didn't suffer a ton growing up beyond what was normal for people around her, and yet she's surrounded by people like sorry, I realize the lighting for my camera is terrible, and yet she is surrounded by people who have suffered insane trauma, who come from a background of slavery, versions of slavery, forced prostitution, just very, very interesting, something interesting that might to unpack in an essay perhaps. Anyways, and another example of this family solidifying and hardening, Justin is the name of the baby, the abandoned child whose mother was shot by a stray bullet. He sort of adopts Allie, and because, you know, he has perhaps in a way he has a sense of you know, she is a former mother, and she resists this at first, right? He follows her around and she doesn't like it, she resents it, but eventually she kind of adopts him too. And these two people who have lost someone very important to each other have sort of adopted each other. And then echoing the themes of, you know, there's the one city that is erased, right, which is San Francisco. They pass through a town called Hollister. We already discovered that several of the small communities shown on the maps no longer had not existed for years. The earthquake had done a lot of damage in Hollister, but the people hadn't gone animal. They seemed to be helping one another with repairs and looking after their own destitute. Imagine that. So, you know, we continue to get mirrors of the group, right? When one city falls, another city comes together, a smaller city comes together to take care of their own, just like Lauren's group is doing for each other. So chapter 21, they arrive at a reservoir, and now we see the community organization really happening. Again, returning to the theme of water, they arrive at a large body of water and they find that a lot of people have gathered there, a lot of people have made encampments there, which makes sense. One of the most important things that a community needs is fresh water, access to fresh water. And just like in when they stopped by the ocean, when it was just Lauren, Harry, and Zara, and when they adopted Travis and Natividad, just like that moment, when everybody went to the beach and sort of like relaxed and took their time, now in this moment, they also take this opportunity to relax and unpack and take a few days to tend to their supplies, to tend to their wounds, to tend to each other. And it's so interesting to me. Everyone starts setting about their various camp locations where they're going to sleep. They start setting things up. They start preparing food, and the mothers all sit in this, like the mothers don't have to work. The mothers being Natividad and Ali, anyone who's caring for a child, suddenly they sit in the center. Now, this is interesting to me because continuing on the theme of survival and community, the way communities are organized, um, I think of elephants. When elephants are moving through a desert, through a jungle, through Sahara, whenever they stop, they form a circle around the mothers and the babies in the center, and they get, while the elephants all like keep watch and collect food. Super interesting that Octavia Butler is being so conscious about the way that this group is starting to really organize and work together and become like one single organism. So Lauren gets an opportunity to sit and work side by side with Bankole. She gets an opportunity to to talk with him about Earthseed. They work somewhat silently. She tells him all about her ideas for Earthseed, that she wants to help people to shape God with forethought, care, and work, educate and benefit their communities, their families, themselves, contribute to the fulfillment of the destiny. And he says something really interesting. He says, it sounds too simple. Your religion sounds too simple. It sounds like it doesn't have enough mysticism. People need a mystical sprinkling. And he also says that people are going to take your religion and they're going to change it for their own ends. And which she says, not while I'm around, they're not, right? So Lauren is kind of a control freak. You know, she's a leader and she knows the way that she wants things to be. She thinks she kind of knows everything. And in this way, this is an opportunity for us to acknowledge Lauren is still a teenager, right? She's at this point about 18 years old, and she still has a lot to learn. So much of this book is about Lauren learning and what she's learning and how she's forming into a leader that this world needs. And I think, you know, she's kind of telling on herself a little bit by saying that her religion doesn't need any mysticism, because what is that statement? The destiny of Earthseed is to take root amongst the stars, if not a little bit of mysticism, right? That's mysticism to me, right? Because she's imbuing a sense of wonder, and it's that sense of wonder that captured Travis's imagination, right? She gets a bit of Bankole's backstory. She learns that he was a doctor and that his wife, he lived in a community similar to Lawrence, and that he got home one day to find that his house had been robbed. His wife, who needed medication, had been, the victim of a beating and a robbery, and that she died because the medications were stolen. And that the community came together to help him after his wife was killed. And now he's just headed north, right? And Lauren, who is a hyper empath, who is a good leader, who knows people really well, she understands that Bankole has told her at least one lie, right? And that she knows he's probably not headed to nowhere, that he probably has some idea of where he's headed. And this bothers her, but also she understands that trust, again, this is returning to the theme of trust, how we learn to trust people. And Lauren figuring out, well, okay, if this guy's gonna lie to me, what do I have to do to figure out whether or not I'm going to trust him? They are very age disparate, which is she is about 18 and he is in his 60s, which, you know, I don't know what you guys think about that. Maybe some of you are in age disparate relationships. Age ain't nothing but a number. And this is something that happens a lot in Octavia Butler's books. There's always like a precocious young woman who's like smart and a leader and coming into her own, and always a much, much older man who alternately antagonizes her and alternately teaches her things, but also she's kind of like her leadership is never threatened by the presence of an older man, right? The character always maintains her leadership. Anyways, just something to think about. I love the, you know, the daddy thing. She found herself a daddy, but actually she's kind of like, she's kind of the daddy in that relationship. She's the boss. Anyways, sorry. Um, anyways, so reviewing chapters 21 and 21. There's communities like the reservoir. We see community rhythms, mothers, people going their separate ways to, like, you know, form into family units, then joining back together to talk about Earthseed. Themes being trauma, victims, care, community. What do we bond over? Lauren and Bankole bond over their shared losses. He thinks of his wife, and she thinks of her father and her family and her brothers, and they bond over that. So chapter 22 is pretty easy breezy. We'll get through. As wind, as water, as fire, as life, God is both creative and destructive, demanding and yielding, sculptor and clay. God is infinite potential. God is change. So in this chapter, they're continuing on the I-5, and things are just getting worse and worse setting wise, right? They start coming along the site of human bones on the freeway because trucks, the I-5, I don't know if any of you guys ever take the 5 freeway, but it is a trucking route. And the I-5, in this story, the trucks don't stop if they've hit a person. Why should they? The dogs are getting worse. The dogs are getting more bold. They come across a group of cannibal children who are roasting a leg on a spit, a human leg on a spit, and one of them is pregnant. It's just getting horrific, right? And you can sort of feel this is exactly what everyone was talking about when we were asking the question, what would you rather do? Would you rather go to the city that's on fire and become criminal? Would you rather sit in one place and be complacent in your neighborhood waiting for the wall to fall? Would you rather go to Olivar and be someone's debt slave? Or would you rather go to the unknown north, right? And this is what we were talking about. We had no idea the kinds of challenges that Lauren was going to face when she went north. And this is it, right? Cannibalism, cities collapsing, earthquakes, continued attempts on everyone's life, orphaned children. Like, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. We can sort of feel the tension building and the climax coming for us. So Bankole makes an offer. Let me see. Bankole finally, he asks her, first he makes an offer. He says, Lauren, I don't want to let you go. I'm into you. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that they have sex, right? Great, feels great. They're happy. I think it's really interesting that Octavia Butler acknowledges sex as a stress reliever in this time, right? Because we've all been like living in a period of high stress for the past year. And in times of trauma, stress relief is really important, just as important as like survival and supplies and all of these things. And that Octavia Butler acknowledges that for Lauren, sex isn't a useful stress reliever. It's like so human and so beautiful that she sensationalizes sex that way. So Bankole makes an offer saying like, girl, I'm into you. Like, we are good for one another. I don't want to let you go. And Lauren has to explain 2 things to him. And then he also says, and by the way, I have a giant plot of land in Northern California that my sister is living on, and that's where I'm headed. And so Lauren has to make two things clear to him. She says, okay, like I'm into you too, but I am married to Earthseed, right? My religion and my people are my boyfriend. So, and I can have two boyfriends, but if you want me, if you want to be my lover, you got to get with my friends, right? So, and he's like, girl, I knew that, I acknowledge that, I realized that. So again, in this way, Parable of the Sower is a lot like, or sorry, Earthseed is a lot like traditional religion, right? Lauren is, perhaps we could say, the first priest of the first religious leader of Earthseed. And the priests and religious people of religious orders are married to their god, right? They maybe in some religions they can marry, but they are married to their idea of God and their religion, and it's very much the same for Lauren. And he accepts that. He's like, yeah, I kind of figured that if I was going to bring you to my land up north, you're gonna have to bring all these people. And then and then there's one more thing that she has to explain to him. She has to explain to him that she has hyperempathy syndrome, and that for this reason she needs him to understand that sticking with her might be a risk, right? If there is if there is if she breaks her arm, if someone breaks their arm, then she's broken her arm, so to speak, and she can't help. And he says the best thing, this is what makes him marriage material for Lauren, right? Rather than fighting her like Harry did and accusing her of being a liar, or rather than being threatened by the fact that she offered help like Travis was, right? He offers a solution. He says, self-defense shouldn't have to be an agony or a killing or both. I can be crippled by the pain of a wounded person. I'm a good shot because I've never felt that I could afford to just wound someone. Also, the worst part is if you got hurt, I might not be able to help you. I might be as crippled by your injury, by your pain as you are. And he says, I suspect you'd find a way to help me. She says, don't suspect that. I'm not looking for compliments or reassurance. I want you to understand, if you broke your leg or you were shot or anything serious happened to you, I'd be disabled too. You must know how disabling real pain can be. And his response, the sexiest thing anyone could have said, yes, I know a little about you too. No, don't tell me again that you're not fishing for compliments. I know. Let's go back to camp. I've got some pain medications in my bag. I'll teach you how and when to use them on me or whoever needs them. If you can just hold on and be yourself long enough to use them, you can do whatever else may be necessary. Pole's like, I don't care that you have hyperempathy syndrome. I'll teach you how to tend to other people's wounds. I'll teach you how to heal so that if you heal other people, you'll be healed yourself. He offers a solution. He doesn't just say, I can deal with that. He says, girl, we're going to work on this together. That is how you should find a man, right? If you find, or a partner of any kind, you say, oh, I'm crazy, I have a demon, I'm not good for you, I'm gonna drag you down. And and the other person says, okay, we'll figure it out together. Here, I've got some solutions in mind actually that we can to help you deal with it. That is beautiful. That is amazing. Anyways, so what is Octavia Butler putting in front of us right now, right? Again, Lauren is learning, right? He's offering to teach her something, Lauren, and also, what is trust, right? Trust is the people who offer solutions. It's not just people who need help, but people who can offer help, right? And finally, we're starting to see a solution for where they're all going to be headed. So that's chapters 21, 22, 20, 20, 21, 22. Next time, we will be talking about chapters 23 to 25. This video is long enough, so I'm going to end it now. Look out for the first demo for how to answer the essay questions for the final exam. Thank you so much. Talk to you later. Bye.